You can't just dismiss Dr. Harris like that. Do you even know who he is? The voice cuts through the typical chaos of Memorial General's emergency room like a scalpel. For a moment, the steady beeping of monitors and the squeak of nurses' shoes on linoleum fall away as all eyes turn toward the confrontation unfolding near the staff desk. It's 7:15 p.m. on a Tuesday shift change at the chronically understaffed community hospital. The waiting room is packed with patients, some having waited hours already. Fluorescent lights cast everyone in the same sickly pallor, from the young mother cradling a feverish child to the elderly man clutching his chest. Dr. James Harris stands perfectly still, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. At first glance, he seems unremarkable, just another older physician in slightly faded scrubs, his silver hair neatly trimmed, his face lined with decades of too little sleep and too much responsibility. The only thing distinguishing him physically is a slight limp as he shifts his weight. Across from him, Elaine Peterson, the hospital's new administrator, taps her designer shoe impatiently. Her crisp pantsuit and immaculate appearance stand in stark contrast to the exhausted medical staff around her. A leather portfolio is clutched in her manicured hands, containing the budget cuts and staffing changes she's implementing. Dr. Harris, as I've explained, she says loudly enough for everyone to hear, we're restructuring the emergency department. Your volunteer position is being eliminated effective immediately. We're bringing in younger doctors with more current training. Her voice carries the practiced detachment of someone who views healthcare purely as numbers on a spreadsheet. The nurse who had spoken up, Jenny, a veteran of the ER for 15 years, steps forward again. This is wrong. Dr. Harris has saved more lives in this ER than anyone. The administrator barely glances at Jenny. This decision is final. Security will escort Dr. Harris to collect his belongings. She gestures toward the uniformed guard who has appeared at her side. The ER, normally a symphony of controlled chaos, has gone completely silent. Patients and staff alike watch as the older doctor, who had arrived 12 hours earlier to cover an understaffed shift without complaint, stands dignified in the face of this public humiliation. No one yet realizes that within minutes, the quiet dignity of Dr. Harris will be shattered by a very different kind of authority, one that will make the hospital administrator regret her decision in ways she can't possibly imagine. Dr. James Harris stands motionless as the security guard approaches. At 63, he carries himself with the distinct bearing of someone who has faced far worse than administrative bullying. His silver hair is cut in a style that hasn't changed in decades, practical, low maintenance, regulation adjacent. Though his scrubs are slightly faded from countless washings, they're immaculately pressed, just like his white coat hanging in his locker with James Harris, MD, embroidered in simple block letters. Up close, his face tells a story the administrator has never bothered to read. Deep lines fan from the corners of his eyes, not just from age, but from squinting against desert sun and the dim light of field hospitals. His hands, steady even now, bear the calluses of someone who has worked with more than just medical instruments. Around his neck, partially hidden beneath his scrubs, the distinctive shape of dog tags can be seen on a chain, a detail most of the staff have noticed but never mentioned, respecting his privacy. Despite his limp, the result of an injury he never discusses, Dr. Harris stands ramrod straight. In the 6 years he's volunteered at Memorial General, he's never once called in sick, never complained about the endless hours, and never refused to see a patient, regardless of their ability to pay. The staff have whispered theories about his past, but Dr. Harris neither confirms nor denies them, preferring to let his work speak for itself. Across from him, Elaine Peterson represents everything the community hospital never used to be. Brought in 8 months ago by the hospital board to modernize operations, she arrived with an MBA, zero medical experience, and a mandate to cut costs. Her designer suits and luxury car stand in stark contrast to the struggling neighborhood the hospital serves. At Fort 2, she's built her career on optimizing healthcare delivery, corporate speak for fewer staff handling more patients. Dr. Harris, she says, her voice carrying the practiced indifference of someone who has fired dozens before him, your methods are outdated. This hospital needs physicians trained in the latest techniques, not volunteers stuck in the past century. She doesn't bother to lower her voice, seemingly unconcerned that patients can hear her dismissing one of their most trusted doctors. The security guard, Ron, who Dr. Harris once treated for a workplace injury, looks uncomfortable with his assignment. He shifts his weight from foot to foot, avoiding eye contact with the physician who had spent hours ensuring his hand would heal properly when the previous administrator had wanted to rush him back to work. What Elaine Peterson doesn't know, what she hasn't bothered to learn, is that beneath Dr. Harris's unassuming exterior lies a history that would make her corporate credentials seem laughably inadequate. The dog tags, the limp, the way nurses with military backgrounds sometimes call him sir, without thinking, these are clues to a past that's about to collide spectacularly with her present. The other staff members exchange knowing glances. Most have been on the receiving end of Peterson's efficiency measures, reduced staffing levels, shortened patient visits, endless metrics to track. But dismissing Dr. Harris crosses a line they never thought she'd dare to cross. Comment, honor those who served. If you believe that veterans deserve respect no matter where they work after leaving the military, I believe you're making a serious mistake, Miss Peterson. Dr. Harris speaks for the first time, his voice quiet but carrying a natural authority that makes everyone in the vicinity pause. There are 3 critical patients who came in during my shift that I'm still treating. Elaine Peterson's smile doesn't reach her eyes. Dr. Winters will take over your cases. He's just completed his residency and brings fresh perspective to our team. She gestures to a nervous-looking young doctor hovering nearby, who seems deeply uncomfortable with the situation. With respect, Dr. Harris continues, still calm, the gentleman in Bay 4 has symptoms consistent with a rare combat-related infection I've treated before. Dr. Winters won't have encountered it in his training. That's exactly what I mean about outdated methodologies. Peterson cuts him off, her voice rising slightly. We don't serve a military population here. This is a civilian hospital, and we need doctors who focus on standard civilian medical issues, not exotic battlefield conditions. A small crowd has gathered now, nurses, orderlies, even some ambulatory patients. The security guard has taken a step back, clearly reluctant to insert himself further into the situation. The infection isn't limited to military personnel, Dr. Harris explains, his professional demeanor unwavering despite the public humiliation. It's appearing in the civilian population, particularly in travelers returning from certain regions. The CDC issued an alert just last month. Peterson's face flushes. That's enough. I won't have my authority questioned in front of the entire hospital. The decision has been made at the board level. Your volunteer position was always meant to be temporary. 6 years is hardly temporary, interjects Jenny, the nurse who had initially spoken up. And Dr. Harris has been working double shifts for months because we're understaffed. He doesn't even accept the stipend we offer volunteer physicians. Other staff members nod in agreement, but their body language betrays their fear of becoming Peterson's next target. The hospital has already lost 4 experienced nurses and 2 doctors to budget cuts in the past quarter. Financial constraints require difficult decisions, Peterson says dismissively. We simply cannot afford to maintain outdated practices. Dr. Harris's methods may have been appropriate in his day, but medicine evolves. Dr. Harris remains still, but something flashes briefly in his eyes, not anger, but something deeper, like a soldier recognizing familiar terrain. May I ask what specific methods you find outdated, Ms. Peterson? I've published 18 peer-reviewed articles in the last decade, and I serve on the editorial board of the Journal of Emergency Medicine. Peterson is momentarily taken aback but quickly recovers. Your triage protocols are inefficient. You spend too much time with individual patients. The metrics clearly show, metrics rarely capture crucial qualitative outcomes, Dr. Harris interrupts gently. Our patient survival rates in critical cases have improved 34% since implementing my triage system. Dr. Winters, the young physician, unexpectedly speaks up. He's right. I studied Dr. Harris's emergency triage methodology during my residency. It's actually considered cutting-edge, not outdated. Peterson's expression hardens. Dr. Winters, remember that your probationary period isn't over yet. The threat hangs in the air, and the young doctor falls silent, chastened. Turning back to Dr. Harris, Peterson's voice turns cold. I don't care what you did in the military or where you published. This is my hospital to run now, and I've determined you're not a good fit for our future direction. Dr. Harris's posture shifts almost imperceptibly, a subtle squaring of the shoulders that military personnel would instantly recognize as battle readiness. This isn't your hospital, Ms. Peterson. It belongs to this community, many of whom are in this room right now, watching how you treat someone who has served them faithfully for years. Peterson's phone suddenly buzzes. She glances at it impatiently, then freezes, her expression changing from annoyance to confusion. Security is reporting multiple military vehicles entering the hospital parking lot, she says, more to herself than anyone else. What in the world? Dr. Harris's expression remains unchanged, but something like resignation crosses his features. He glances at his watch, an old, battered timepiece that looks out of place against the high-tech medical equipment surrounding them. Right on schedule, he murmurs quietly. The emergency room doors slide open with a pneumatic hiss, but instead of the expected ambulance crew, a woman in full military dress uniform strides in. Brigadier General Sarah Lawson of the United States Army Medical Corps moves with the precise efficiency of someone accustomed to making life-or-death decisions in seconds. Her uniform is impeccable, decorations and insignia gleaming under the fluorescent lights, for stars prominent on her epaulets. Behind her, 6 military officers in Medical Corps uniforms form a precise formation. Through the glass doors, more personnel can be seen directing a convoy of military ambulances that have formed a perimeter around the hospital's emergency entrance. The vehicles bear the distinctive markings of the Army Medical Command, their lights casting red and blue patterns across the parking lot. The general scans the room with practiced efficiency, her gaze moving past Peterson until it locks onto Dr. Harris. Without hesitation, she approaches him and renders a perfect salute. "Colonel Harris, sir." Brigadier General Sarah Lawson reporting as requested. The ER falls into stunned silence as Dr. Harris, the quiet volunteer physician everyone thought they knew, returns the salute with military precision, his posture transforming instantly from civilian doctor to commanding officer. "Thank you for your prompt response, General," he says quietly. "Though I'd hoped this wouldn't be necessary." Administrator Peterson steps forward, attempting to reassert control over the situation. "Excuse me, but this is a civilian hospital. You can't just barge in here with military personnel and MS." "Peterson, I presume?" General Lawson cuts her off without even turning to look at her. Instead, she addresses one of her officers. "Major Reynolds, please explain the situation to Ms. Peterson while I confer with Colonel Harris." The major steps forward, producing official documentation on Pentagon letterhead. "Ma'am, I'm Major David Reynolds, Army Medical Corps Legal Division. We're here under direct authorization from the Secretary of Defense regarding Operation Nightingale." Peterson blinks in confusion. "Operation what? I've never heard of. It's classified," Major Reynolds states flatly. "What you need to know is that Colonel James Harris, M.D., is the director of a joint military-civilian medical research program critical to national security. His presence at this facility is not, as you seem to believe, a volunteer position. It's a deep cover assignment that's been ongoing for 6 years with full knowledge of your hospital board chairman." The color drains from Peterson's face. "That's impossible. The board never. The chairman was briefed under a national security directive." The major continues impassively. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a situation to address." Meanwhile, General Lawson and Dr. Harris, now clearly Colonel Harris, are speaking in low tones, using military terminology that sounds foreign in the hospital setting. "Medcom reports 3 more cases in the civilian sector, sir," the general is saying. "The pattern matches your observations exactly. If you hadn't flagged this, we'd still be looking at isolated incidents instead of recognizing the broader threat." Colonel Harris nods gravely. "Patient in Bay 4 presents with the same markers. I've documented everything according to protocol." The staff watches in astonishment as their humble colleague transitions seamlessly into his military role. Jenny, the nurse who had defended him earlier, suddenly recognizes what's happening. "You're James Harris," she gasps. "The James Harris who developed the TRACE protocol for combat trauma. We studied your work in nursing school. They said you disappeared from the medical community years ago." Colonel Harris offers a small smile. "Not disappeared, Nurse Chen. Just working where I was needed most." General Lawson turns to address the gathered staff. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption, but we're implementing Emergency Medical Protocol 47 Alpha effective immediately. Colonel Harris has identified a potential emerging infectious threat that requires specialized containment procedures." She gestures toward the parking lot, where military medical personnel are already unloading equipment from the ambulances. "We've established a field containment unit to take over critical cases while we secure this facility." Peterson pushes past the major, her voice rising in panic. "You can't just take over my hospital. I'm calling the board chairman right now." "Please do," General Lawson replies calmly, though he's currently in a secure briefing with the Surgeon General regarding this situation. Colonel Harris has been monitoring potential outbreaks here for years as part of his assignment. When you attempted to dismiss him, he activated the emergency protocol exactly as his orders required. The young Dr. Winters looks at Colonel Harris with new understanding. The infection you mentioned, it's not in any standard medical textbooks, is it? No, son, it isn't, Colonel Harris replies. It's something we first encountered during classified operations overseas. We've been tracking its potential spread into civilian populations for 3 years now. General Lawson turns to Peterson, finally addressing her directly. Ms. Peterson, you attempted to remove a decorated combat surgeon with 30 years of specialized experience in emerging pathogen response, a surgeon who has saved more lives under fire than most doctors save in their entire careers. A surgeon who chose to serve quietly in this community hospital rather than accept lucrative private sector offers, because he believed he could do the most good here. Peterson's expression shifts from confusion to horror as the full implications of her actions begin to register. I didn't know. The board never told me. That was the point, Ms. Peterson, Colonel Harris says quietly. Some work is best done without drawing attention. General Lawson clasps her hands behind her back, addressing the entire emergency room in a voice accustomed to command. For those of you unfamiliar with Colonel Harris's service record, allow me to enlighten you. Her gaze fixes pointedly on Administrator Peterson, who seems to shrink under the scrutiny. Colonel James Harris served 5 combat tours as Chief of Trauma Surgery in the most contested regions of multiple conflict zones. He personally performed over 400 life-saving surgeries under direct enemy fire. His battlefield medical innovations have become standard protocol across all branches of service and have been adopted by civilian trauma centers worldwide. The general gestures to one of the medals barely visible beneath Colonel Harris's white coat. The Distinguished Service Cross he wears was awarded after he continued operating for 72 consecutive hours during the Battle of Karamshar, despite being wounded himself. He saved 38 lives that day, both military and civilian. Peterson stares at the unassuming doctor she had dismissed so casually just minutes before, her professional arrogance replaced by dawning horror. What Ms. Peterson failed to understand, General Lawson continues, is that 6 years ago, when Colonel Harris could have retired to a 7-figure consulting position, he instead accepted a classified assignment from the Joint Chiefs. His mission, to establish early detection protocols for emerging biological threats in civilian populations. She turns to the young Dr. Winters. That outdated triage system he implemented here? It's now being adopted by the CDC, and who is the gold standard for identifying potential pandemic vectors. The research papers you studied were just the unclassified portions of his work. Military medical personnel have now established a perimeter around the ER, efficiently transferring critical patients to their care. One of the officers approaches and salutes. Ma'am, field containment unit is operational. We've isolated the 3 cases Colonel Harris identified and implemented Level 2 protocols. Thank you, Captain. General Lawson replies before turning back to address the hospital staff. Ladies and gentlemen, we're dealing with a pathogen of concern. Nothing catastrophic, but something requiring specialized handling. Colonel Harris recognized the pattern because he encountered an earlier variant during classified operations abroad. She pauses, letting her words sink in. Colonel Harris chose this hospital specifically because its demographic profile made it an ideal early warning system for detecting community spread. By working here as an apparently retired volunteer physician, he could monitor potential outbreaks without causing panic. Another officer approaches with a tablet, which he hands to Colonel Harris. After reviewing the information, Harris nods gravely. The patient in Bayfur confirms it. He says quietly. Pattern matches the Jakarta cluster exactly. Recommend full implementation of nightshade protocols. General Lawson nods and turns to Peterson. Ms. Peterson, effective immediately, Memorial General is under temporary military medical authority via Section 252 of the Defense Authorization Act. Your administrative access is suspended pending security clearance review. Peterson sputters, You can't. I assure you, we can. General Lawson hands her a document bearing the presidential seal. This hospital's board chairman signed contingency agreements 6 years ago when Colonel Harris began his assignment here. Your attempts to dismiss him triggered automatic protocol activation. The general addresses the rest of the staff. For those of you who have worked alongside Colonel Harris these past years, Know that your service has been a crucial part of a national security mission. The data collected here has helped develop protocols that will save countless lives. She smiles for the first time. Colonel Harris specifically requested that if his cover was ever blown, I should tell you all something. He said working alongside dedicated healthcare professionals like yourselves, people who put patients before profits and care before convenience, has been the greatest honor of his distinguished career. Nurse, Jenny steps forward. All this time, we had no idea. That was rather the point, Colonel Harris says gently. My mission required anonymity. But why stay silent when Peterson was trying to force you out? Dr. Winters asks. You could have revealed your position. Colonel Harris shakes his head. Military discipline, son. My orders were to maintain cover unless a specific threat threshold was reached. Miss Peterson's actions, while misguided, didn't justify breaking protocol until she interfered with monitoring of potentially infected patients. The hospital intercom crackles to life with an announcement. Attention all Memorial General staff. This is Chairman Galloway. The hospital is under temporary Department of Defense authority. All non-essential personnel, please report to the auditorium for briefing. Essential medical staff, continue patient care as directed by military medical liaison officers. Peterson looks utterly defeated. The chairman knew all along? Everyone knew except me. Need to know basis, Miss Peterson, General Lawson says. And frankly, with your focus on metrics over medicine, you weren't deemed trustworthy with national security information. Two military police officers approach. Ma'am, we need Miss Peterson to surrender her credentials and accompany us for debriefing. As Peterson is escorted away, Colonel Harris finally allows himself a moment of visible fatigue. He leans slightly against a nearby counter, the weight of both his years and his secret finally showing in his posture. I'm sorry it came to this, he says quietly to the staff gathered around him. I had hoped to complete my mission without disruption. 3 hours later, Memorial General Hospital has transformed. Military medical personnel work alongside civilian staff with remarkable efficiency. The patient in Bay 4 has been transferred to a specialized containment unit, along with 2 others showing similar symptoms. The rest of the emergency department continues to function under joint operation. In the hospital administrator's office, Chairman Galloway has returned from his Pentagon briefing, looking both apologetic and resolute as he addresses Colonel Harris and General Lawson. Ms. Peterson has been placed on administrative leave pending review, he informs them. The board has appointed Dr. Winters as interim chief of emergency medicine, with Colonel Harris as senior advisor for as long as he wishes to remain with us. Young Dr. Winters, still processing the day's events, shakes his head in disbelief. I still can't believe I've been working alongside the James Harris for months without knowing it. Your paper on field triage algorithms literally changed how we practice emergency medicine. Colonel Harris smiles slightly. That was always the approach I wanted, for the work to speak for itself, not the rank or reputation behind it. Outside the administrator's office, staff members gather in small groups, sharing stories of times when Dr. Colonel Harris, had gone above and beyond for patients without seeking recognition. The pieces now fitting together. How he always seemed to know exactly what to do in crisis situations, his unnaturally calm demeanor during chaotic traumas, his habit of working holidays and weekends so others could be with their families. He covered my shift when my son was in the hospital, one nurse recalls. Worked 36 hours straight and refused to take payment for it. Remember that bus crash last year? Another adds. He implemented a triage system none of us had seen before. We saved every single victim. In the cafeteria, new. RSE Jenny sits with several colleagues watching a news report about a routine military medical exercise at Memorial General. The cover story developed to prevent public panic about the isolated pathogen cases. I feel terrible, she admits. All those times we tried to set him up on dates or invited him to staff parties, and he always politely declined. We thought he was just shy or maybe a bit of a loner. He couldn't get close to anyone, a colleague realizes. He was under deep cover. As the evening progresses, Colonel Harris makes his rounds, still checking on his patients, still the same dedicated physician he's always been, though now the staff sees him through new eyes. The military uniform he's changed into seems to fit him more naturally than the scrubs ever did. In the emergency waiting room, a young mother approaches him hesitantly. Colonel, my daughter said you're the one who saved her when she had that bad allergic reaction last month. Colonel Harris smiles gently at the little girl. Just doing my job, ma'am. As a doctor, not a soldier. But why here? The woman asks. You could have worked anywhere, with your background. Because communities like this one are the heart of America, he replies simply. And they deserve the best care possible, not just what's most profitable. As night falls, Colonel Harris stands outside the emergency department, watching as life at Memorial General continues under new management. General Lawson joins him, handing him a cup of coffee. You've done good work here, James, she says quietly. 6 years of anonymous service. Most men with your decorations would have demanded recognition. That's not why we serve, he replies, echoing the creed they both live by. Across the parking lot, MS. Peterson is escorted to her car by military police, her career effectively over. The administrator who valued budgets over people, who couldn't see the hero working quietly in her midst, now faces the consequences of her short-sightedness. Chairman Galloway approaches the two officers, extending his hand to Colonel Harris. On behalf of this community, I want to apologize for what happened today. And thank you, not just for your military service, but for choosing our hospital when you could have gone anywhere. Communities like this one are our first line of defense, Colonel Harris responds. I was just a sentry, watching for threats most people never see coming. As patients and staff observe the scene through the windows, a powerful lesson resonates through Memorial General. The true heroes among us rarely announce themselves. They serve quietly, with dignity and purpose, asking for nothing in return. The veteran doctor, dismissed so carelessly hours before, now stands revealed as exactly what he's always been, a guardian, a healer, a protector of others, whether in combat fatigues or faded scrubs. Remember that the heroes walking among us often wear no medals in plain sight. They carry their honor in their actions, not their accolades. And they deserve our respect, not for who we think they are, but for who they've always been.